can't skim this. Is that right?
The person who can do that is the one who has the wireless mouse and keyboard.
Gotcha.
It's like the awesome power of.
That's funny. So I still have to have mine.
There's also an HDMI cable that you can use if you have that kind of a port.
Okay. I'll figure it out. It's almost like I have too many options.
Well, the scary thing is that eventually we might be able to share our screens, which is really you know what I mean?
You gotta better make sure what you're sharing. Did you notice that this didn't match numbers?
No. Please bring it up.
Yeah.
I got an old computer, so.
Unless I read it wrong.
Okay. I saw Sam left.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Good evening. It's the scheduled time for the January 9 meeting of the Meridian Township Meridian Planning Commission. I should take a roll, and we have Mr. Shrewsbury,
Here?
Mr. Richards,
Here.
Mr. McConnell.
Here.
Oh, and Commissioner Snyder.
Here.
What are you doing hiding over there?
I know, it's bizarre.
I'm Deputy
Keep you on your
Chair.
toes.
Trezise, I'm present. First agenda position is for public comments. We will have three opportunities for public comments, 2 for general comments, and 1 for the public hearing on rezoning 2301-1642 Lake Court. So at this point, we're open for general public remarks. If you wish to speak, we ask you to fill out a green card, and we ask to limit to 3 minutes for your speaking. I have one request, and that's Lynn Page.
Good evening, Happy New Year, Lynn Page, 3912 Raleigh Drive in Okemos. I just had some questions regarding the text amendment 2022-19 for recreational marijuana. Just asking for some robust discussion and some consistency in the commission process for public hearings and discussions of zoning amendments of this nature. I have attended many hundreds of township meetings, and when the terminology changes, it's helpful to explain it to the public. What is the difference between a text amendment and a zoning amendment? Are they the same? Are they different? What is your process for public comment during a public hearing? It's uncomfortable for individual residents to feel that commercial interests are being given additional leeway in the public comment process when the chair is inviting questions from the commission for people speaking in the public comment as if it were a rezoning request, and when there's a dialogue going on between the director and an individual speaking in public comment. So I'd appreciate if the same process was applied to everyone and there was more fairness and impartiality. In regard to this issue in particular, I would ask that you have consideration as to whether or not it's best to combine the medical and recreational marijuana zoning ordinances, or since there has been no interest in the medical portion of it, if you should rescind that part of the zoning ordinance, because based on what has happened in other municipalities, you could be placing the township at risk for a duplicative zoning based on legal proceedings. I would also like you to discuss whether or not health and safety data may impact the zoning that you've proposed to send to the board, and appreciate your consideration of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment at this point? Want to respond to that? I think as a general rule, public comments are comments from the public addressed to the board for consideration. And the difference between that and someone who has filed a zoning change or an SUP is an applicant who has the responsibility to justify what he or she is requesting, and therefore we allow them more leeway to answer specific questions from the Planning Commission. So that is the difference in those. They are different purposes, and they are designed that way on purpose. Yes.
Yeah, I think the point was, and again, I'm not recalling the circumstances, it wasn't the applicant that was conversing. Anyway, that's just, I think that.
That being the case, that should not have happened. Public comments are designed for essentially one-way comments to the board, and interaction is rare. It may be addressed later in the meeting, but it's not normally done during public comments. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second by Mr. McConnell. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have the approval of the minutes of December 12, 2022. They've been provided to the board and part of the meeting packet that's available to the public. Is there a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Commissioner Shrewsbury moves.
Second.
Commissioner McConnell seconds. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Communications we have received communication from Ms. Page. We also have a package of emails. Oh, these are communications with regard to the master plan that were included in our package. I think
That is
these new ones.
That is also an email from Lynn Page and the attachments that came with that email.
We don't have the attachments that came with Lynn Page's in paper here. They're in the packet, that's true.
There are two things. There's a email that was handed out.
We got
before
the
meeting,
email here.
And then the packet has a communication
Yes.
from Lynn Page.
Yes.
With attachments.
Right.
Regarding the text
Yeah.
amendment, or the text amendment.
I was referring to the stack of paper I've got here, and that is
I apologize. Those are,
public comment from the master plan as well as Ms. Page's email.
sorry, you're right about that.
All right.
Hand these
Thank
out,
you.
I forgot.
We now have scheduled a public hearing for the rezoning 23-01, 1642 Lake Court. Petition to rezone from RB, one family high density residential, to RCC, multifamily residential, subject to a conditional rezoning agreement. Mr. Shorkey.
Thank you, and one final time to everyone, Happy New Year. This is the subject property that we're talking about right here. So this is Lake Court, this is Marsh Road, and then this is Lake Lansing Road. So these were originally 11 parcels. None of them conform to their zoning category. So there's actually two zoning categories there. The eastern half of this is C1, and the western half of this is the RB. Those 11 parcels contain 5 homes. They've been consolidated into one parcel. Those homes have been demolished and the site has been cleared. The request for the RCC zoning is to allow for the construction of 6 duplex units. Now, as I said, 5 units were demolished. There were 11 parcels there. There's now 1 parcel, so it would be a replacement of 5 single-family homes with 6 duplexes. The RCC zoning on its face is much denser than the master plan calls for here. RCC allows, on its face, 34 dwelling units per acre. Thus, the condition offered by the applicant, that if this rezoning is approved, no more than 12 units, i.e. 6 duplexes, will be built on this site. That condition mitigates the non-conforming, the way the RCC would be more dense than the master plan calls for, and brings that much closer to alignment with the R3 designation on the future land use map. Other than that, there's municipal water and sewer is available. They'll be hooking up to that. This will be, when it gets to development plan phases, it will be reviewed by the road department, drain commissioner's office. Site-specific details will be worked out then. So that's the synopsis of what's being requested here, and I can answer questions if you have them, or I can turn this over to the applicant.
Any questions for Mr. Shorkey? Yes.
Yeah, a couple of questions. The consolidation or combination of the lots, you said was in September of last year, and that doesn't ring a bell in my mind. Is that an administrative?
It is.
Can you
It is.
describe briefly how that process?
They do a survey, submit an application for lot combination. It goes through our office to make sure the proposed lot meets zoning, in which case, yes. And then it gets forwarded to the assessor's office and gets recorded, in this case, after the first of the year. So this has a tax ID number and is on the roll.
Thank you. That makes me more curious. I thought I heard you say that right now we have non-conforming use.
No. I'm sorry if I was unclear. The original 11 lots were non-conforming lots.
In what sense were they out of conformity?
They're far too small for the RB and the C1 districts.
It wasn't the wrong use in the area, it was just the size of the lots that were non-conforming.
The homes in the RB district were the right use, yes, but the lots were far too small. The resulting lot is conforming to
Gotcha.
lot sizes.
Okay. Well, that brings me, thank you, that helps.
Sure.
To my second question, which is, I read in the memo, I believe, that the application is consistent with the principle of infill development.
We are looking at this as an infill development. I mentioned that there were 11 parcels, there were 5 homes, that means there were 6 vacant lots. This fills that gap.
But there's 5 existing single-family homes there now.
No, there are not. They have been demolished. This site is vacant.
Okay, in that case, I made a mistake while I was driving down Lake Lansing Road. There's a bus stop in between that, what is it, Harvey and Marsh? Those houses are still standing?
These houses to the west, yes, they're not part of this application.
Gotcha. Those must have been the ones I was thinking. So this is all vacant, empty?
This is, yes. Just so you have a little bit of more bearing, this is the vacant Cheesy D's property.
Yeah.
This is also not part of this development.
Yeah, no, I was just distracted as I came into the intersection trying to stay in the right lane, so I thought maybe there were still houses there.
Sure.
So, yeah. And help me if there's information in the packet about sort of the price point of the proposed development? Or is that something we might get information on from the applicants?
You can ask the applicant about that. That's not part of our review process.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Can you just refresh my memory that you said that the applicant said they only need 12 units? Is that a contingency or a condition that would travel with this property going forward? Or could it at some point in the future be more densely developed under this zoning if it were rezoned?
The condition is attached to the property.
Thank you.
I had a question. You say this gets closer to the R3 designation planning. What would be the limitation on that as far as building?
So the future, on the second page of my memo, I've got table 1 from the future, or from the master plan. And what that is, here, I'll bring that up, I'm sorry. And what that is, it's required in a master plan, here are your future land use designations. Now remember, future land use designations are not zoning categories, they're guidelines. But here are the zoning districts that correlate with those future land use designations. So this property is under the R3 designation, which correlates with the RA, RB, and the RX districts. Now the RX district does allow duplex development, but not at the density that they're looking for. The next level up is this MR residential. That includes the RCC. But my point is that this is shown as R3 and then on the future land use map. And prior to the consolidation, it had 11 lots there. This isn't going to look visually that different. It had 5 homes, 6 vacant properties. This will have, or had 5 homes with 5 homes with 6 vacant properties. This will have 6 duplex units. Now, I understand that it's more units per, but visually, it brings that, the result is it brings that closer to that R3 designation, which is described as, it's up here, R3, like 1.25 to 3.5 dwelling units per acre.
So this would, R3 would come down to almost 1 dwelling unit at 0.7 of an acre. Correct?
I did not, I said this brings it closer to. This brings it mitigate, the RCC district is necessary for this
Oh,
proposal.
I'm sorry, you said 3.5, not
3, yeah.
I missed, you're right,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a dense-ish, residential designation. This, with the condition of 12 units, brings it closer to that R3 than an RCC district would by itself, which again is 34 units an acre.
That much I understood.
Okay.
I didn't know what I missed the part about what the R3 would be.
Okay,
The range, okay. Thank you.
sure.
Anything else? We'd hear from the applicants. And please state your name and address.
Name and address.
Name and address, yes.
How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Dominic Lee. This is my business partner, Scott Wheaton. We were born and raised in Meridian Township. He was Hazlitt, I was Okemos, so we call ourselves kind of the Meridian Township boys. And we're excited to be here because for the first time, we've actually been able to start giving back to our community, hopefully. And this will be our first development in the community, and it's something we've dreamed about since we were young boys at the age of 14. We've always talked about wanting to give back to the community that kind of raised us, do some awesome developments, and kind of give back and help areas that need the help. And we believe that the area that we've targeted here needs a lot of help. Obviously, it's just vacant land now, but before it was kind of rundown properties, very small properties that are only about 750 square foot homes that actually used to be old World War II war barracks. They were essentially falling down. That's why we were actually forced to demolish them before we even thought we were going to need to. So we demolished those properties, now it's vacant land. What we're here to kind of do is we're gonna make it quick for you guys and then open it up for questions, because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of questions about what we're trying to do. But as Brian said, is we're trying to put 6 duplexes on this property. It used to be 5 homes, single-family homes. They were very small. Like I said, they're only about 750 square feet each. We're trying to put some larger units that are more fitting. They're gonna be 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. We're trying to make them a little bit higher scale, but not too high, not too nice for the public. We have a couple drawings that we brought with us. They're pretty basic. We haven't put much work into them, but we want to give you guys kind of a visual so you know what we're trying to do. They're going to be a little more contemporary, but not too contemporary, because I know a lot of the trends in our area. We also work in the real estate industry, so we're very familiar with trends of the area. We know that contemporary is not very popular in the area, but we're looking to start bringing some of that, especially to the kind of downtown Hazlet area where this property is located. To kind of touch base on some of the main features of the property, we're trying to make it extremely appealing to the eye. We mentioned 6 duplexes. 3 of them will be off of Lake Lansing. 3 of them will be off of Lake Court. So the front of the duplexes, 3 of them will have Lake Lansing frontage, the other ones will have Lake Court frontage, and then in the middle of the property, sort of in the backyard, if you guys want to call it the backyard of the duplexes, we're trying to kind of make it a community style feel. It's going to be pretty. Maybe we'll throw in some water features, we'll throw in some gazebos. We'll give the tenants that will be moving in there lots to do in that small area. Obviously, the area speaks for itself. We have Lake Lansing right next to it, so there's plenty to do there. There's food options. We're hoping that our friends that used to be Cheesy D, well, Watershed is there and is a thriving business in town, obviously. But we're hoping that our friends at what used to be Cheesy D, something will move in there as well. Hopefully another ice cream shop or something like that, and that'll also help the area as well, because in my opinion, and also in Scott's opinion, we think it's an area that has a lot of growth potential, and we want to start with kind of our small parcel of land, which is only 0.7 acres, but we're hoping that we can kind of jumpstart that process for that area and really start to bring some growth to that community and bring some really nice visual appearance to that community as well.
Yeah, and as Dom mentioned, obviously, we saw this as kind of an eyesore as we drove by. We spent a lot of time in Meridian Township. We own a real estate sales team in Okemos. So this is a common route for us. We had a client who actually brought it to our attention. He was the past owner of it, and as soon as he brought it up to us, we knew it was an opportunity for us to, again, give back, but also do a cool project and kind of, release our creativity. So again, exteriors that we were planning on, kind of a modern look. As far as the community goes, having those common spaces is going to be great for whoever's living there. We've also planned on cutting down on driveway accesses to Lake Lansing Road. Obviously, that all is contingent on approval from Ingham County Road Commission. But our idea there is there were 5 driveways that went out onto Lake Lansing Road, and we'd be cutting that down to 2 by actually doing a little parking structure, which we do have on the plans that we can present to you guys as well.
It will be a one-way in, one-way out parking lot with the slanted parking spaces, so that every resident knows that this is a one-way in and a one-way out. Like Scott said, there were 5 existing driveways on that side of Lake Lansing, and from what we heard from our previous tenants, it was often quite a headache to get in and out of there, which I would assume everybody could imagine. So our thought is if we only have 2 driveways instead of 5, it should be a lot easier. We put a supporting document in for that, that our engineer put together. That's essentially just a trip generation study that is in the packet that Brian put together for everybody. That simply just states that we should not be generating over the allowance that Ingham County has posted on their website for that area. Again, this is all kind of contingent on what Ingham County says when we propose this to them, but we're hoping that it's enough for them to kind of push it forward so that we can put in our duplexes over there. The duplexes will be about 950 to maybe a maximum of 1,000 square feet each unit. So that'll be 12 units. That'll be around that around that many square feet. Like I said, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, open floor plan, nice island in the kitchen. We want to just be extremely homey, and we know that the location supports something like that. We just need now the buildings that support that for that area. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I guess now we'll just leave it open for anybody that has questions. We're kind of looking forward to hearing what you guys think of our idea and kind of go from there.
Questions from the commission?
Not a question per se, but can we see
Yeah.
I can't see the drawings, so maybe you could walk them around so we could at least see them.
Absolutely. Do you guys
And
want
let
to
the folks in the
Yeah.
audience see them also.
So as you guys can see, this was just thrown together this week, to be completely honest with you guys, so we're gonna put a lot more effort into it. But when we say contemporary, we mean kind of the attractive roof lines, something that's a little more new age. If you watch HGTV,
That's not gonna get picked up.
kind of hold this idea that HGTV wanted to kind of put that, bring that tablet. Like I said, it's gonna be more in depth. We printed out this small picture. Here, I've left for you guys. That Gonna have to rip it. Our design will actually put something together, a little more similar to these two ideas. These are 2 separate duplexes, but we're gonna get something kind of in the middle of that. Because this is a little too modern for us, this looks like something.
It may be more beneficial, of course, at this point, if the applicants provide this information to us digitally and we're able to put it
Yeah,
on the
that would
website.
help, yes.
We will do that. We're dead air right now on the TV.
Let's go back to the mic.
Okay.
If you could put that up so that we could see it from the board, just in front of you for a minute so we can get an idea.
And if you guys could please state your name and address for the record, that'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, my name is Dominic Lee. This is my business partner, Scott Wheaton. Our address is 2419 Science Parkway, Okemos, Michigan, 48864. And then,
And here's the picture that our architect put together. This is still a work in progress, but obviously this shows the modern style duplexes that we plan on putting on the property. As you can see, you're only able to see 3 units because there would be another 3 behind them,
yep,
following the same pattern.
it's just a front elevation.
And then obviously we have the overhead drawing as well.
Detached, ready to do that.
Okay. Questions? Yes, Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, I brought up the question earlier of the sort of demographic that you're looking to appeal to with this 950 to 1,000 square feet, 2-bedroom, 1 bath, open floor plan. Did I hear that right?
Yes. Yep.
So I'm interested in your thoughts on, first let me say, building relatively high density in vacant downtown-ish places is classic infill. It's what if you're trying to achieve walkability and bikeability, that's how you do it.
Yep.
When there's a convenience store and restaurants in walking distance, so, yeah. But I'm interested in your thoughts on who you hope to appeal to with design.
I appreciate you asking that question. So this was extremely important to Scott and I because, like I said, we are in the business of real estate, so we deal with people every day. And a huge problem that we have seen in the real estate industry since we've been in it is affordability. So we want to make sure that renting one of these units is going to be extremely affordable. With that being said, we're not going for, some might call it the low-income housing or the lower rent housing. We're going to base our rents based on market data. And right now, for example purposes, this could change at the time of us building, but for right now, market rents for a unit that is of this style and of this size is between $1,600 and $2,200. I know that's a large range, but that range is kind of dictated by how nice the units are. If we build these super nice and try to make them luxurious, of course they're going to be by the $2,200 a month price point. But if we kind of go in the middle, which is what our current plan is, that could be looking more like $1,600, about $2,000 a month.
And as you mentioned, obviously, location is huge for this.
Yeah.
So we can see that attracting many different demographics as far as what type of person would be interested in this. As 2 young guys, I mean, this is pretty much exactly what people our age are looking for. Something downtown that they're able to walk to attractions, find entertainment.
Yeah.
And obviously, the age of first-time home buying is going up every year. So there are going to be young people who would be interested in these, but obviously, if it's not required for you to drive a lot of places, then there's going to be older demographics that are interested in that as well. So we can see a wide array of people that would be interested in these.
Thank you. So I might, one more? In your discussion of the, your hope that the road department will allow the one in, one out arrangement, you mentioned that was a problem experienced by previous tenants.
Yes.
That those are tenants prior to demolition of those?
Correct.
Can you give me a feel for what the rents were before?
They were not even close to market value. In fact, most of them weren't even paying rent, to be completely honest, according to what the old owner said.
What was the nominal rent?
It was like, I think $350 is what we collected the last month, and then we found housing for the tenants before we told them that it was getting demolished in the winter. They all moved out in August, and demolition took place, I think, was it November? I can't even really remember, but it was November, sometime around that time frame. And I think we received one rent check from all 5 units, and it was $350.
Would it be appropriate for me to ask if we know whether they were able to find other housing in the township, or is that stretching? Any idea where they ended up?
Yeah, most of them ended up in the apartment complex. It's kind of right next door. One lady did move down the road in Hazlet to Potter, and then the other one was a family member of the previous owner, and I think they might have potentially moved in with the previous owner, but I'm not quite sure, honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? I have a question, and maybe it's for Mr. Shorkey to answer. Have you, looking at Lake Court, I drove down there today, and to call it a road might be an exaggeration. It's not much more than an alleyway.
Yeah.
As I said, that'll be under review when this, if this is approved, it'll go to the development plan phase, and the Ingham County Road Department will look at that and any improvements that are necessary.
My question was, is it a dedicated public road?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't get to it, so, okay. Because right now, I think throwing 6 units out on that road, the only way out is realistically, is to go out to Marsh Road. That may be as difficult as getting out on Lake Lansing with 5. Yeah, so.
Well, so Lake Court actually goes out, it has an exit and entrance on Lake Lansing.
It does.
And on Marsh, which is surprised because in all honesty, when I was growing up, I thought that was a private road. I thought it went to some house that was way back in the woods, but it's actually owned by Meridian Township, I believe.
It's
And
the
so
road department.
By the road department, yep. So it has an exit and entrance on Lake Lansing and on Marsh, which from my experience, the last few months since we have been dealing with this property, it is a lot easier to get out on Lake Lansing because you're kind of further down from the intersection over there.
But neither of those exits are much more than an alleyway.
No, no, yeah.
So they aren't set up like a regular or township road. So.
Exactly, yep.
So that may be a problem you'll have with the road
Right.
commission and us.
Maybe just one part of the shot. Folks may not be aware because it happened fairly recently, but on Shaw, a couple streets next to the lake, there was recently a duplex renovated right up almost by the parking lot there. And I think it's kind of a similar style.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other houses in that neighborhood also that have kind of done that, and a few up on the north side of Lake Lansing as well. So
Yeah.
if folks are curious, there are examples out there to see how that meshes with the neighborhood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Our township, as I recall, has some rather significant setback requirements between buildings and duplexes.
It does.
Have you looked at the land, because it looks awful small to get 6 units in there in duplexes driving by, have you looked to see that you can meet those setbacks?
We have had pre-application meetings with the applicant. It is possible that they're going to have to come through here with a planned unit development. So you'd see this during the development plan phase.
Okay, all right. And that'd still be available in this zoning request.
That is correct.
Any comments from the public at this point? Seeing
It's not even,
7/10 of an acre.
yep, there you go.
You have to stand up, you have to come in.
And if you do drive by, you'll be able to tell exactly what this is because it is a vacant slot in the middle of homes. Okay, yeah, take a look when you drive by.
Yeah.
Seeing no public comments, we will close the public hearing at 7:08, and open it up for commission discussion. If there's anything more. Yes, ma'am.
I just, I appreciated the question about the setbacks because it is a small area. But I will say, I appreciate the effort being made in that specific area of Hazlet because it definitely needs some attention. So, and it's just my initial reaction to that.
Awesome. Thank you. We're hoping it's the first of many over there.
Anything from the commission? At this point, with no further discussion, I guess we'll take a straw poll to see if we want this to come back to us next time or need more information. Start with Mr. McConnell.
I would support this.
Shrewsbury.
I'm leaning towards support, yep.
Mr. Richards and Snyder.
Support.
And I will also. This is not an approval. This is simply a straw ballot to give guidance to staff to come back with a resolution that we would pass or not pass, and then it would go on to the township board for approval.
Awesome.
So I assume that will be back in 2 weeks, in the next meeting, if we can get it done.
I will have that on your next agenda, and please send that information to me digitally. I'll include that in your
Appreciate
in the
that.
packet for that.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Mr. Schmidt, our item is item 8, unfinished business, text amendment number 2022-19, recreational marijuana.
Yeah, so this is the tax amendment that would modify the zoning ordinance to allow for recreational marijuana use. Just to clarify, what it does is it removes the language that's specific to medical marijuana, so we have a single zoning ordinance that addresses all of the marijuana-related uses. There's a secondary ordinance that will come along, it's a licensing ordinance that will be specific to recreational licensing, because the terminology between the two is different because they were enacted at different times through different acts, initiated acts. So this is just the zoning piece. The Planning Commission has reviewed this a couple of different times, and really the only discussion that came up at the last meeting where there was any aside from the broader question of the ordinance, specific to the ordinance, was with respect to whether or not to allow grow operations. They are currently permitted in the medical. Staff is recommending we strike them. If the Planning Commission would like to include that in the ordinance, we can make that happen. Functionally, what we would do is we would add a definition, because the definition is needed, and then we would put this language back in for Area 4, because that is the area on Hagedorn Road that would be able to be zoned industrial based off of our comprehensive plan, and we would go that direction. So if the Planning Commission has that desire, what we would recommend is, as part of the motion, we've included an optional addendum subject to staff, including language to allow marijuana grow operations in the ordinance similar to the current ordinance for medical marijuana. Other than that, we'd be happy to answer any questions. The straw poll at the last meeting was 5 votes for, 1 abstention, and 1 against. Therefore, we have provided you with a resolution to approve in your packet this evening.
Questions for Mr. Schmidt? Yes.
I'd like to just better understand the thinking behind the striking of the allowing for growing operations in the different, just the striking in general, I guess.
So from staff's perspective, the reason we've recommended the language we've recommended is to simplify the ordinance and to not utilize what we view as valuable industrial research professional office space for what is currently an oversaturated market. We have heard from some of the potential applicants, as the Planning Commission had discussed at their last meeting, that there is potentially an option to have sort of a boutique grow as part of a dispensary. That is really the question in front of the planning. That is functionally the policy question that we are down to at this point, with the Planning Commission making a recommendation to the board. We can easily make that it's a relatively minor change from a text perspective, and we can make that change in the final recommendation if the Planning Commission would like.
So I understood that, I think it was it Director Clark that had sent us a memo about
Yes.
the industrial usage. So I understood that part specifically to, which was the overlay area. It wasn't number 4. So I guess if I'm understanding you correctly, then the striking of that part of the ordinance about growing operations we could still potentially consider that for overlay district number 4.
On Hagedorn Road,
Which
yes.
is not the area of concern as far as the industrial use areas.
Correct. Our main concern, frankly, there are 3 areas in the existing ordinance that would allow a grow operation: Towner Road, Dawn Avenue, and Hagedorn. Hagedorn's the most difficult. It requires rezoning. There's substantial wetland and floodplain there. Towner Road was likely never a realistic option because it required coordination with Bath Township, and it was going to be difficult no matter what. Dawn Avenue was really our focus in that we don't need to utilize the space there for this type of use, and so staff simply recommended to keep it clean, to strike it in its entirety. It's as easy as it was to strike it. I can hit the undo button and leave a few of those words in to allow it in the Hagedorn Road district.
Yes.
I've got a question for staff, excuse me. Having to do with the section that talks about additional regulations, the number, parentheses, F, additional regulations, parentheses 2. Business operations and design shall minimize any impact to adjacent uses, including control of any odor, by maintaining and operating an air filtration system so that no odor is detected outside the permitted. It says promises, but meant to be premises.
Thank you.
But that's not my point. So I guess, how is that actually, a couple of questions. So if somebody violates that, what happens?
So to start with,
Enforce that.
that's actually language from the existing ordinance. That is part of the medical marijuana licensing ordinance right now, but given that it's a health safety type regulation, we moved it over to the zoning ordinance because under the zoning ordinance, we can write civil infraction tickets much easier than under the licensing
Okay,
ordinance.
so it'd be a civil infraction.
It would be an immediate civil infraction.
Okay. My second point on this has to do with outside. Because a number of places where these could go would be in strip mall type buildings where they basically have a common roof. And so, I guess I would, the worst case scenario is there's an odor inside, not outside, and it affects basically renting the rest of the units, to the point, and it, arguably, if you get enough money for one, some units would stay empty. So is there a way to regulate so that any particular odor that might be associated doesn't go to the rest of the building?
Yeah, so that would actually be not part of the licensed premises, so that would still be a violation if it was in the neighboring suite.
I read outside to mean beyond, not
Okay.
inside, outside.
Okay, so
Sorry, it's-
I read outside as being outdoors,
Outside the
so,
permitted premises.
Yeah, your licensed premises are gonna be those 4
okay, that's
walls.
good, appreciate that.
Specifically because, Commissioner Richards, you were very adamant about making sure it's all within a building.
Correct.
So if it's outside those 4 walls of that building, or in this case, the 4 walls of that suite, you are in violation.
Right, okay.
Mr. McConnell.
Yeah, I appreciate the option that staff has provided with regard to the possibility of continuing to allow growing or to allow growing under this. I remain unclear on how a growing operation is would prevent the siting of something more valuable. It certainly seems healthy to have a range of industrial uses in any given township and to be meeting especially local demand as much as possible. So when I think of the most beneficial uses of very limited industrial land, I would think that those industries that are meeting local demand in that view would be the most valuable, as opposed to an industrial use that might be manufacturing goods to go wherever they go. The professional office space is kind of the wrinkle in the fabric here, because we have a tech startup in our industrial zone, and that's different than casting iron or whatever it is one might be doing there. But I'm unconvinced that that's not among the more desirable, and I would have thought able to pay as high a rent as any other industrial use that might come along. But in the spirit of good governance, I'm happy to see that optional option. I would prefer the motion to include that optional language when it is considered by the commission.
Yes.
I think I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner McConnell. I guess there's nothing that would force that use in that area. It would be either or, as I understand it. And so this just gives a little bit of flexibility for the kind of operation that was described.
Yes, yeah.
So, I mean, because the recourse, let's say there is a demand at some point in the future, we would have to be petitioned to change the ordinance, and then it would have to go through that if somebody wanted to use a particular zone overlay area for that purpose. There's no variance or waiver that would allow it. It would have to be a change.
Correct.
So, it feels to me like the market will determine whether or not that use is a use that's appropriate. And as long as we're comfortable with it happening in that area, and for the reasons that you described, not happening in the other overlay districts, I think it makes sense to allow that flexibility and see what happens. And I mean, if it doesn't, it doesn't, but there's a possibility if it needs to, and particularly because only one licensee per area, it would, by default, I think, have to be a combination with potentially boutique. So I don't see that as different enough from the other that if we're going to allow it, to me, I feel like that's okay too. So I'd be comfortable adding, long story to say, I'd be comfortable adding it or including it there.
Let me be clear on what Mr. McConnell is proposing. Are you proposing to add in, restore the two industrial zones that are in the current ordinance for Towner Road and
Dawn Avenue?
Dawn Avenue? Or are you talking about just allowing the option in Overlay District 4 on Hagedorn, which is currently undeveloped entirely?
Thanks for the opportunity to clarify. Certainly, leaving the possibility of a manufacturing option on Dawn Ave would be my preference. I don't see how that use is necessarily any worse than any other manufacturing operation that could otherwise be cited there. But if that is not possible,
I'm just trying to clarify.
yeah, well, that would be my preference, is to, if commercial interest wants to come in and manufacture that product on Dawn Ave, I don't understand why not. So I would prefer that zone and that use be left. not certain whether, I don't have a real solid grasp of the grower A, B, and C, so I'm reticent to suggest a specific how much or little should not be stricken. If that makes sense?
Yes, it does.
But yeah, clearly my preference would be to consider that use along with any other that might be set up to manufacture in our little tiny industrial areas.
What about the Towner Road piece? If we're trying to get clarification on what you,
Well, again, I'm waffling a bit here because, in part because of the sort of professional office and other, when I think about what I see in our industrial zones and what's being proposed in our industrial zones, it seems like service businesses that, for example, service heating, cooling, air conditioning systems, I believe are tenants in some of our
Correct.
industrial zones. And again, from the standpoint of having local facilities that are providing those kinds of services to local residents is always going to be better than having somebody drive all the way from wherever it is. So I'm doing my best to defer to staff's expertise on what the demand is and what the relative benefits are. And maybe I'm just asking for more information about the kind of, it feels to me, as long as I got the floor, that when I got here, Don Ave was kind of scary. It was empty, it was, there was a going business or two, and then there was a lot of stuff that you could, and now when I go down there, I'm looking forward to walking the MSU to Lake Lansing Trail, because it's gonna go right past the end of Don Ave. And it doesn't have sidewalks, but it's got businesses, it's got stuff going on, and the buildings are fixed up, and it looks nice, and obviously it's, it's vibrant. If, when staff say there's a scarcity of industrial space, I can believe it. It would help me to understand what are the competing uses that that we're currently having to turn away that we could also have there.
So our biggest concern, to be completely frank, is that you have the incubator on Don Avenue and we don't have any place to put those people. We have limited spaces to put those people if they were to become the next big thing. And so Director Clark and I have had this conversation previously of how do we find spaces for those uses? So what our point originally was not trying to create more demand on that limited industrial space, because you're right, these types of uses will pay top dollar to get what they want. And they can functionally price out anyone else, which doesn't really benefit the township very much, because the building is still worth X dollars, whether it's got a tenant paying $30 a square foot or a tenant paying $5 a square foot. So we see no financial benefit from that regard, but we have the potential then to have the space sucked up by a user that may not be as beneficial to the broader community in terms of potential employment or potential expansion. Frankly, also, the market is, as you may have read today in the Free Press, there is substantial consolidation expected in 2023, and it's already started in 2022. There's the models of how you process and grow and sell in this industry are changing. No one was able to get sort of the gorilla hold on the market at the beginning, and so now you have a lot of smaller mom and pops type stores that are able to succeed because they get the market and they get the clientele following. And I think that's what the property owners discussed previously, is that that's the model they're shooting for. Relatively small, single location where it's sort of farm to table, for lack of a better analogy. If the planning commission's desire is to re-include Dawn and or Towner, we would recommend not taking action this evening and let us redraft the language, because that's a substantial enough change that I would feel more comfortable bringing that to you. The change to simply include Hagedorn is relatively straightforward. I can walk you through that. The change to add back in the other two, it gets more complicated.
You had something,
Well, I think it was clarified in the comments made that our economic development coordinator, if that's the right term, really suggested that the growing operation be removed from the town. That was my point.
and from Dawn.
From Dawn, right.
I think I would go along with the proposal to eliminate the industrial overlays on Dawn and Towner Road. I am not as restricted or concerned about the possibility of adding the option on the Hagedorn overlay district. I'm not sure that it will ever happen, but it is an option. It is a rather, as you said, wetland-heavy area, and grow operations take a lot of room, a lot of electricity. So, I don't know. Do we want to put this over and discuss it further at the next township meeting?
It sounds like it would be onerous for staff to try to provide a new recommended language on a resolution this evening. So I think it would be a mistake to proceed. I think the question is, do we want to, do we have, how do we feel about having staff spend more time on this to rethink it? That's really the question in my mind.
I am happy to vote on it this evening with the option for overlay District 4 included, if that's where the commission wants to go forward. If they wish to get back into the weeds further on Dawn Avenue and Towner, I think it needs to go back to staff. But I'm kind of looking for the consensus of the commission before we make that decision. Jim, thoughts, Mr. Richards?
No.
You don't.
I mean, I would be comfortable with limiting it to the,
Overlay 4?
yes, sorry.
Sorry.
Overlay number 4.
I think we know my preference would be to see it back without that language stricken and put those 2 units back in. But if I'm the only one, then let's not hold up the works.
Waffle. I'm definitely comfortable with 4. I do think we would want to, I guess, have opportunity. I know the public hearing has happened and we didn't get a lot of comment on public hearing at all, but because this would be a significant change to what has been proposed in our packet, I think it would be appropriate just for the community to have another opportunity to speak to it in regular public comment if we were going to broaden what we had talked about beyond what's in the packet, so.
There is still the opportunity, if there is a desire for individuals who want to restore those overlay districts, to present that argument to the township board. This is only a recommendation to them, and they'll have to approve it, and they can change it. So this is not, I guess the question is whether the commission is ready to go forward with this and vote on the resolution, adding vision for overlay District 4, or wish to go further. I'm hearing from most that we would like to vote on it tonight.
I actually have another question that's, it's different from the
Okay.
grow portion of it. Could you scroll down the document to letter F? So F1, mobile facilities and drive-through operations are prohibited. That was another one that I was curious about, not the mobile facilities, but the drive-through operations being prohibited. I was curious about the thinking behind that too. And I apologize if I should have asked this question at a different meeting.
Absolutely not. That's what we're here for. is largely a result of the commission generally being supportive of keeping everything within the building. I am double checking real fast to make sure that this is the benefit of having the world at my fingertips. Confirming that is not in the existing medical, because I don't remember exactly.
I'm not sure it's even allowable.
It is permitted,
Is it?
yes,
Under state law?
yes.
In COVID, they effectively all were.
So functionally, the way our ordinance reads right now is that no vehicle may be used for, may be used or incidental to in the furtherance of transportation of marijuana. So our ordinance sort of pocket vetoes it already.
How do they get their products? Seriously.
Valid question. I mean, it's referring more to the secure transporter piece of it, but it's getting at this idea of they want it in a building and only in a building. Sure.
If I might, does the prohibition on drive-through, would that also prohibit delivery to a vehicle? I mean, I can get my Meijer groceries stuck in the back of my car. Are we does that count as drive-through in our?
It would not count as a drive-through operation because you would not meet the definition of drive-through under the ordinance in a situation like that. Otherwise, every Meijer and Walmart would be in violation right now.
Right.
Because they don't have an SUP.
Right. So it's just a matter of how the parking lot's arranged, whether it looks more like.
Correct.
Okay.
Would point out you have left the 2,000-foot limitation in, which I appreciate. That no dispensaries can be within 2,000 feet of each other. And that should limit it in nearly all of the situations to one per overlay district.
Yeah, there's only, based on the current locations of the medical licenses, there is only one overlay. Even theoretically, you could have a second one.
Right. Do we have a motion?
No, I can't. I have to go back and read it. No, you go ahead, I'll second.
All right. Move to approve the resolution to recommend approval to the Township Board of Ordinance 2022-19 recreational marijuana establishments and the revised overlay map, subject to staff including language to allow marijuana grow operations in the ordinance similar to the current ordinance for medical marijuana.
I will second that motion.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is before the vote, right?
Yes.
Okay. So first off, I guess I would like to thank Lynn Page for providing the information, a detailed report on the impact of legalization of marijuana in Colorado, which I believe was in the 2013 era. So there's quite a bit of data, and it's a very good report from what I could see based on statistics. And most of it shows that legalization was not positive in terms of impact to quality of life in Colorado, which kind of gets me to the purpose of the zoning ordinance, at least from my view, is to protect and enhance the health, safety, and welfare of Meridian Township residents. So first off, I have to say that the staff did a very nice job of listening to concerns and, put limitations in the ordinance, so I appreciate that, work that they've done. My issue, and why I'll be voting against this, is in the net benefit versus potential negatives, and in this case, documentation was provided by concerned resident that pretty much what happened in another state that, I guess it's, in my mind, I have a question as to whether this ordinance really protects and/or enhances the health, safety, and welfare of Meridian Township residents. And I guess kind of on a big picture, understanding that, that recreational marijuana is legal, do we as Meridian Township want to enhance the negative impacts that have been documented for this or not? And I guess from my vantage point, I guess I weigh in that I would prefer that Meridian Township not be involved in it and allow recreational marijuana to be sold in the township. So that's why I will choose to vote against this ordinance in terms of its recommendation.
Any other comments? Okay. We will take a vote. Ms. Shrewsbury,
Yes.
Mr. McConnell,
Yes.
Mr. Schneider,
Yes.
Mr. Richards,
No.
and the vice chair will vote yes. This is passed 4-1.
Thank you very much.
Item 9, other business, Planning Commission annual report. Thank you for the detailed report.
Thank you. We, Senior Planner Shorkey did an excellent job compiling it this year. We seem to have gotten to a good format here for the Planning Commission. I, don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this, but I want to really reiterate that you guys stayed busy last year, and staff will continue to feed you text amendments in the upcoming year. Once we get past the master plan update, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. But I have no further comment on this. At this point, we would ask that the Planning Commission forward the annual report to the board for their review.
Looking through some state laws today, and I realize we're supposed to send an annual report to the township board.
Yes.
I'd so move that the report get forwarded to the township board.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? I want to thank you and Ms. Shorkey for all the work you do supporting this commission. It makes it possible to get through with this in less than 8 or 9 hours most nights. So, and we do appreciate the clarity and the information you provide for us on a regular basis.
Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't also point out Assistant Planner Chapman, who you guys don't see as much now, but we're going to try and get him back a little more in the upcoming year.
He's been avoiding us, I think.
We keep him on the ZBA for a while. They have a good thing going.
Next item under other business is election of officers.
So I would actually, if it pleases the chair, vice chair, when we sent this packet out, I was not aware that there are actually 3 planning commission appointments on the township board agenda for tomorrow night. So I would actually recommend that you postpone that we not take action on this item and the next item until our next meeting, when you will have, for the first time in a long time, a full board.
Where are we going to put everybody?
I do need to figure that out, because it worked really well with 8.
Can I go back to my end seat over there, please?
You can.
I see
No
no
offense.
State law says 5, 7, 9, or 11 for a county, so.
It says the same for us. I tried for 7, but going back to 9. So
Okay.
it's gonna get friendly up there.
Well, that's very good. Without objection, we will table those for the next meeting. Saves me from wondering what to do about the chair who's not here, and I don't know if he wants it again.
I think we should take the opportunity to stick him with it, just.
And several of the other fill-ins. We do need someone to attend, well, there is a scheduled next week, ZBA meeting. Is that going to occur, do you know?
There are alternates on the ZBA. though.
No, the ZBA is actually very short right now. I do not believe the ZBA is meeting this month.
Okay.
I'm 98% certain this
It's
is.
still on the calendar because I noticed it today.
We don't officially cancel usually until the week before, just to make sure that nothing comes up.
Okay.
We will confirm that. They do have 3 members still before the planning commission appoints someone, so we will be okay.
Okay, all right. Then we go on to master plan update.
So we just, we wanted to provide you with sort of a package of the feedback we've been getting thus far. We're working on translating these into workable goals and objectives. You may have seen the communications team decided to put me on the Facebook page this week and last week, and it actually generated some additional comment, which is what you have in front of you this evening. And so we're going to take some time, I think, over the next several weeks here, put out a couple more short videos, try and get some additional feedback. What I can tell you is that one of the big things that's coming out of the feedback we're getting is that there may be some potential coordination with the Parks Commission between the Planning Commission, because there are a lot of comments we're getting that are directly related to the parks and things people want to see. So, which is very interesting. I was expecting a lot more angry land use questions, and it's much more people wanting some new amenities and some more modern stuff, and pickleball. So we just wanted to get this to you so you can, again, more information for you to start digesting as we start to get some hard documents in front of you in the coming weeks and months.
Great.
Could I, can you remind us, is there a connection of any form between the master plan and the Parks master plan? They just went through a master planning process.
There's not a direct correlation, but typically what I have done in my career is there's always a sort of incorporation of other plans, because we also, we have the pathway master plan, we have the parks master plan, you have, the sewer and water plan, the master plans. So there are a variety of other things that we will incorporate by reference and by goal into our plan.
Thank you.
We're trying not to recreate the wheel, but we want to make sure that we acknowledge and bring them in.
All right. Any questions with regard to the master plan update? Okay. Reports and announcements, township board updates. You told us the big news.
Yeah, that's the big information for tomorrow night, is that we will have 3 new members potentially. I would also add that the board has taken up the minor amendment to the daycare definitions, and will be had no major concerns with that, and that's likely to be approved by the end of the month. And they will be taking final action on the amended brownfield plan for American House of Meridian, which is under construction right now, senior living facility. First floor is almost fully framed in. They are moving along quite well and are well on track to hopefully be done by the end of the year.
Great. Any liaison reports? Been kind of quiet since the first of the year.
It's that time of the year.
Project updates.
We have no major updates. The current status is actually part of the annual report.
Okay. Public remarks. We have another opportunity for the public to address the commission on general matters. I see nobody clamoring to speak to us, so we'll go on to adjournment. Yes, sir? You're good at that. Yeah. Do we have support?
You got nothing but support.
All in favor of adjournment?
Hi.
I can ask for opposed. So we are adjourned.
Good job.